Squirrel Girl. She started as a goofy side character, but as years passed, Marvel leaned into the joke that she could defeat almost any villain. Thanos, Doctor Doom, and even Galactus. It was meant to be comedic, but a lot of fans hated how overpowered she became in jokes or alternate takes. Even if these weren't canon, seeing her repeatedly beat everyone made some readers feel like Marvel was mocking its own universe. Fans tend to roll their eyes when a parody character is treated like an unstoppable legend. When the unbeatable Squirrel Girl launched, the art direction was intentionally cartoonish, quirky, and aimed at younger readers, but many longtime Marvel fans weren't into it. They thought the designs looked too exaggerated, too kiddie, and too far from typical superhero aesthetics. Some never gave the story a chance, simply because the art didn't match their expectations for a Marvel comic. Her whole vibe is upbeat, wholesome, and silly. She makes jokes, avoids violence, wins fights by taking things out, and even tries to rehabilitate villains. That tone is great for younger readers, but the older ones who want darker or more dramatic Marvel stories often see her as childish or annoying. To them, she feels like a Disney Channel character dropped into the middle of a superhero universe that's dealing with multiverse collapses, wars, and existential threats. Like Carol or Kamala Khan, she became a symbol of Marvel trying to diversify its lineup. It was widely disliked how Marvel heavily promoted her as a breakout star, even though her book targeted a niche audience. The push into merchandise, TV rumors, or team-ups made certain readers feel like Marvel was insisting she become a major icon whether they wanted it or not. And like I mentioned, that forced relevance energy tends to generate backlash. And because Squirrel Girl is partly a satire character, some of her victories bypass logic, physics, or established power levels. She can win purely because the writer wants the joke to land, and that will undermine the idea of a consistent universe. I mean, you can make fun of anything, but power levels, that's sacrilegious. Romulus. When he first appeared, readers expected a mysterious new Wolverine villain. Instead, Marvel decided he had secretly been controlling Wolverine's life from the very beginning. Suddenly, every major moment in Logan's history, the wars he fought, the tragedies he lived through, the Weapon X program, even personal relationships, were all supposedly part of Romulus's master plan. It wasn't exciting. It felt like someone dumped a bucket of bad fanfiction onto decades of storytelling. This character embodies the worst version of the I caused everything in your life trope. It's the kind of cheap storytelling where a writer introduces a brand new character and pretends they were secretly important the whole time. Wolverine's life is defined by pain, randomness, war, bad luck, and trauma. But that's what made him compelling. Turning all of that into a conspiracy planned by one Fury, Roman werewolf guy, made Logan's entire history feel fake, neat, and overly controlled. Romulus removed depth. Villains like Magneto, Sabretooth, and Omega Red work because they have motives, worldviews, and emotional connections to Logan. Romulus doesn't. His character is basically I'm ancient, I'm evil, and I mess with Wolverine because reasons. He has no charisma, no believable philosophy, no hunching backstory, just vague monologues about evolution and dominance. He's a plot device wrapped in fur, created solely to justify retcons that nobody wanted. Without any real personality, there's nothing memorable about him except how much damage he caused to the lore. Logan is the product of war, heartbreak, betrayal, trauma, and survival, not destiny. Romulus completely trampled that theme by making it seem like Wolverine wasn't self-made at all. Logan became a puppet for some shadowy Sabretooth mastermind. This retcon weakened him by stripping away his agency and making him feel like a chess piece rather than a man. So Romulus made such a mess that even Marvel quietly backed away from him. Fans rejected the idea, storylines using him underperformed, and later writers basically pretended he never existed. Maggot. When Maggot debuted in Uncanny X-Men issue 345 back in 1997, fans didn't know what to think, mostly because Marvel introduced a character whose digestive system was literally 2 living slugs that crawled out of his torso. His blue skin, mohawk, and trench coat gave him attitude, but none of that distracted from the fact that his superpower involved biological worms named Eenie and Meenie popping out of his stomach. X-Men powers have always been metaphorical and creative, but Maggot's felt like someone lost it there. The issue wasn't just that Maggot was gross, it's that his abilities didn't translate well into superhero action. His slugs would devour objects, convert the energy, and send it back to him, which sounds cool on paper, but ends up incredibly awkward in practice. How do you write a dramatic battle scene when the hero has to unleash his stomach pets to chew through a carcass? His power set made him more of a curiosity than a functional member of the team, and readers had a hard time seeing him as anything but a bizarre gimmick. Like a lot of late 90s X-Men concepts, Maggot arrived with hints of a deeper backstory, his painful mutation, his South African roots, and his emotional empathy. There were signs that writers wanted to give him depth, but the execution never came together. Editorial changes and shifts in storylines meant his character arc kept getting teased and then abandoned. Instead of developing into something meaningful, he ended up feeling like a half-finished idea Marvel didn't know how to commit to. And once the internet era hit, Maggot became a frequent punchline in the worst mutants ever list. His design, his slugs, even his name, everything about him was easy fuel for mockery. That stigma followed him for decades, because fans made fun of him, writers stayed away from him, and because writers stayed away from him, fans assumed he was unusable. It created a cycle where the character couldn't grow or evolve because everyone had already decided he was ridiculous. Ironically, Maggot actually had the building blocks for a really compelling story: a South African mutant with trauma, empathy-based abilities, and a mutation that physically separates him from others could have been a powerful metaphor about identity and alienation. But instead of embracing those emotional layers, Marvel defaulted to the easy comedic angle. Look at the guy whose organs crawl out of him. Those early decisions locked him into a reputation he never escaped. He's just awkward. His concept was too weird, too gross, and too underdeveloped to win fans over in the 90s, and he never got the redemption arc that stranger characters like Dupe or Glub Herman eventually received. And his biggest flaw isn't his mutation, it's that the Marvel Universe moved on without him. NFL superhero. Most Marvel heroes start with passion, creativity, or at least a cool idea. NFL superheroes started because the NFL wanted synergy. Phil Grayfield, ex-football player, part-time reporter, full-time mascot, debuted in NFL Superhero Issue 1 in 1991, and the entire thing felt like a brand collaboration nobody asked for. He didn't come from a compelling origin or a dramatic accident, he came from marketing. His super suit wasn't a scientific breakthrough, it was literally a reinforced football uniform. Super Pro's entire gimmick boiled down to, what if a football outfit made you really strong and fast? That's it. No mythology, no emotional hook, no unique twist, just football armor. Even minor, Marvel villains had deeper lore than he did. Fans didn't hate him because he was goofy. They hated him because he was boring. Every story boiled down to protecting the NFL brand, which is about as creatively limiting as it sounds. And the comic didn't feel like a Marvel story at all. It felt like a promotional pamphlet that grew legs. The dialogue was stiff, the plots were bland, and every issue felt sanitized to protect the NFL's image. Marvel fans are used to flawed, messy heroes who struggle with real stakes. Super Pro felt like the opposite, a PR-approved, personality-free ambassador for football safety and sportsmanship. And in a universe full of gods and mutants, he stuck out like a mascot trying to act dramatic. And if being boring and corporate wasn't bad enough, NFL Super Pro Issue 6 gave fans something truly awful, a story using offensive caricatures of Native Americans. That issue was pulled from several shops and instantly became infamous. Suddenly Super Pro was embarrassing. The controversy turned the comic from a harmless curiosity into a full-blown PR disaster, and the final nail in the coffin came when writer Fabian Nicieza openly admitted he worked on NFL Super Pro mostly because it scored him free football tickets. Fans already suspected the comic lacked passion, and that confession confirmed it. So even the creator didn't take the character seriously. So why would readers care? So NFL Super Pro was a comic literally made because someone wanted sideline seats. Weapon H. He didn't debut as a natural character. He debuted as a marketing pitch. Someone clearly said, what if we combined Hulk and Wolverine? And Marvel just went with it. Clay Cortez, the soldier turned experiment, basically exists because Marvel meshed together two of their most popular heroes and hoped lightning would strike twice. The problem is that fans instantly saw through it. Instead of feeling like a fresh new idea, Weapon H looked like a lab-grown attempt to print money, not a character developed from an actual story need. Hulk Strange plus Wolverine healing plus adamantium weaponry equals a character almost impossible to challenge in a way that feels interesting. His entire identity is built on being unstoppable, and while that sounds cool on paper, in practice it kills tension fast. Every fight ends with him slicing through monsters or chanking nukes, and after a few issues, readers stopped feeling any danger. When a character shows up and automatically dominates the battlefield, the stakes melt away, and fans can sense when a hero is built to be too strong. Weapon H dropped right when Marvel was already overusing hybrid characters. Venomized heroes, symbiote mashups, old man versions, and Weapon X experiments everywhere. Fans were tired of characters created by blending existing icons together. It felt like Marvel wasn't innovating, just remixing, and Weapon H ended up symbolizing that entire oversaturated era. Even readers who liked him were exhausted by how many similar gimmicks were being pushed at the same time. And once he got his own series, the formula became obvious fast. Big monster appears, Weapon H fights it, Weapon H wins, government conspiracy continues in the background. The repetitive nature made the book feel like a testing ground for cool action scenes rather than a deep narrative. Fans didn't hate the action, it was fun, but the stories rarely dug him into Clay's trauma, morality, or emotional struggles. Without character depth, he came across as a walking action figure rather than a hero with heart. And he was pushed hard by Marvel right when readers were craving good Hulk stories, Wolverine's return, and better arcs for the Weapon X cast. Instead, Marvel gave page time and budget to Clay, a guy nobody had nostalgia for, and that misplaced priority annoyed fans. It wasn't Weapon H's fault, but he became the face of Marvel promoting the wrong character at the wrong time. And people who actually read Weapon H often say he's better than expected. Clay Cortez has some guilt, some loyalty, and a strong moral compass. His creators genuinely tried to build something meaningful, but his reputation was already poisoned by the idea of him being a gimmick. The Hulkverine. I mean, it's like telling an AI to combine Hulk and Wolverine, and Weapon H is the generated image. Quicksilver. From the moment he joined the Marvel Universe, Pietro Maximoff brought an attitude that rubbed readers and characters the wrong way. He constantly talks down to people, insults teammates, and acts like everyone else is wasting his time. His arrogance isn't subtle either. He believes he's above most people, and he lets that superiority complex leak into every single interaction. And when he's doing the right thing, he does it with the energy of someone who would complain the whole time. Other than that, he often acts more like a controlling guardian than a supportive brother to his sister, Scarlet Witch. Over the years, he has lied to her, influenced her decisions, and pushed her into situations that benefited him, not her. In several major stories, notably House of M, Pietro played a direct role in Wanda's mental collapse. He pressured her into rewriting reality, and millions of mutants paid the price. Fans haven't forgotten that he helped trigger one of the worst disasters in Marvel history. He's been an X-Man, an Avenger, a Brotherhood member, and a loner, switching between teams so often that no one trusts him anymore. Sometimes he betrays teams out of fear, sometimes out of loyalty to Wanda, and sometimes just because he thinks people aren't moving fast enough. His moral compass spins like a broken fan, and while that makes him interesting as a character, it also makes him incredibly frustrating. He has a long history of creating messes and then acting like everyone else is overreacting, whether it's starting House of M, sabotaging teams, lying to allies, or provoking people with his attitude. Quicksilver often sparks conflict and then refuses to take responsibility. The funny part is that Quicksilver can be heroic most of the time. He saved lives, risked himself for mutants, and genuinely loves his family. But his personality is a problem. He's arrogant, impatient, controlling, and manipulative, constantly pushes fans away. Unlike other complex heroes who show growth, Pietro rarely learns from his mistakes. He's stuck in a loop of bad decisions and bad attitudes, which makes him fascinating but also widely unlikable. Mary Jane. She has been around for decades, and for a lot of Spider-Man fans, she became the wrong choice the moment Peter had to pick between her and Gwen Stacy. Many older readers believed Gwen was the true love, so MJ stepping into that role immediately made her a target. Some fans saw her as too flirtatious, too carefree, or too dramatic compared to Gwen's sweetness. Even though MJ eventually became one of the most supportive partners in comics, the early stigma stuck, and there's always been a group of fans who resent her for being the girl Peter ended up with instead of the one they preferred. But that's not the reason she is hated. Comes the One More Day storyline, one of the most hated Marvel stories ever told, by the way, and unfortunately, Mary Jane got caught in the crossfire. The deal with Mephisto erased Peter and MJ's marriage from reality, and even though MJ wasn't the one who made the choice, fans blamed the whole situation on her character. For some readers, MJ became a symbol of how Marvel ruined Peter Parker's growth, independence, and maturity. She didn't do anything wrong in the story, but because the story itself was so despised, people dragged her down with it. Now coming to the real reason. A big reason MJ gets hate today is because Marvel uses her as an emotional yo-yo. One moment she's Peter's soulmate, the next she's written as cold, distant, or moving on way too fast. Fans get exhausted watching her shift personality depending on the writer. In storylines like the Paul arc, the recent Amazing Spider-Man issues by Zeb Wells, she suddenly felt like a completely different person, which made a lot of fans furious. MJ is the first character they twist, and fans often direct their anger at her instead of the writing behind her. And taking on the superhero named Jackpot didn't help her reputation. Many people felt like it was a cheap marketing move, turning MJ into a hero just to sell new comics and avoid dealing with her relationship with Peter and Paul. Some fans were annoyed that she was suddenly fighting supervillains instead of being the grounded, human heart of Spider-Man's world. Others thought it made her feel like a knockoff version of other red-headed heroes. Instead of making her more relevant, Jackpot made some fans feel like Marvel didn't understand what made MJ interesting in the first place. And her briefly bonding with a symbiote during the Venom era created another wave of fan frustration. It felt like Marvel was just throwing MJ into extreme situations to force shock value. Others thought it was unnecessary, out of character, and yet another example of Marvel turning her into a spectacle instead of developing her relationships or personal life. The idea of MJ getting symbiote powers wasn't inherently bad, but it felt like it was just done for hype, not storytelling. The funny thing is that Mary Jane is hated because she matters so much. She's been Peter's wife, soulmate, anchor, heartbreak, and moral support for decades. Anytime something major happens in Peter's life, MJ is involved, which means she gets blamed when things go wrong and criticized when the writing isn't consistent. Whether it's One More Day, the Paul storyline, Jackpot, or Symbiote Adventures, Mary Jane always finds herself absorbing the fallout. Some fans adore her, some can't stand her, but she's always at the center of the conversation, and that's why the hate never really goes away. Sentry. When Marvel introduced the Sentry in the year 2000, the pitch sounded genius, a forgotten superhero with unimaginable power and a tragic psychological twist. But what started as a clever, meta story rapidly turned into a continuity nightmare. You were supposed to feel intrigued that a hero this powerful had somehow been erased from Marvel history, but instead, it felt confusing and forced. The secret hero retconned into everything angle didn't land smoothly, and fans immediately sensed the warning signs of a character Marvel didn't fully know how to handle. One of the biggest reasons fans dislike the Sentry is brutally simple: he's too strong to be usable. When your power is the strength of a million exploding suns, what villain can realistically challenge you? And what hero can share a panel without looking pointless? Writers constantly have to nerf him, sideline him, mentally collapse him, or twist his powers into metaphor just to make the plot function. And instead of raising stakes, Sentry erases them. The moment he shows up, readers know the fight either ends instantly or becomes a psychological meltdown instead of an actual battle. Marvel wanted to explore mental health through Robert Reynolds. Anxiety, trauma, addiction, dissociation, which could have been powerful, but the execution is widely inconsistent. Some writers portray him with nuance and compassion, while others turn his illness into a convenient switch. Sentry is unstable today, so he's dangerous. It often feels exploitative rather than thoughtful, and his backstory changes constantly. Is he a forgotten hero, a government experiment, a cosmic anomaly, a self-created myth, a multiversal weapon? Every major appearance redefines him, contradicts something else, or adds new wrinkles that make previous stories meaningless. He doesn't feel like a character, he feels like a glitch somehow. Keeping track of his history is like following a reboot inside another reboot, and nobody has the energy for that. The moment Sentry went full void in Siege, it cemented his reputation as a walking headache. He destroyed Asgard, killed heroes, ripped Ares in half, and spiraled into pure chaos. Fans didn't see a tragic figure who lost control. They saw a character Marvel used as an instant catastrophe button, and when the Avengers finally killed him, it was relief. But of course, he didn't die. He eventually returned. At his core, Sentry's biggest flaw isn't his personality or even his instability, is that he fundamentally ruins storytelling. He's so strong, so inconsistent, and so undefined that he can't be used without derailing everything around him. When he's not overpowered, he's underwritten. When he's not underwritten, he's undergoing another retcon. And instead of adding excitement, he adds anxiety. And for readers and writers, Sentry isn't a villain or a misunderstood hero. He's a narrative hand grenade, and fans are tired of picking up the pieces. Onslaught. He should have been one of the coolest villains ever created, because the concept was kind of cool. Take Professor X's suppressed rage, mix it with Magneto's darkest instincts, and create a physic monster born from their worst traits. That setup had mystery, tension, and genuine psychological horror. But instead of exploring that subtle, creepy direction, Marvel turned Onslaught into a massive, overstuffed crossover that quickly lost the cleverness of the original pitch. What started as an intimate X-Men storyline exploded into chaos almost overnight. Once Onslaught debuted, the 90s comic era kicked in full force. The story ballooned across every major title, every hero like the Avengers, Fantastic Four, Spidey, random civilians probably, got dragged into it. You didn't read the Onslaught event, you drowned in it. Tie-ins were everywhere, some were good, but a lot felt unnecessary or completely disconnected from the core story. It became less Onslaught attacks and more Marvel demands you buy 27 issues this month. For a lot of fans, that overexposure alone made Onslaught exhausting. Another big complaint is how absurdly overpowered he became. Instead of being a scary psychic villain, he turned into a reality-wrapping god who could mind-wipe cities, reshape matter, absorb powers, and basically do whatever each writer felt like. When a villain can do everything, nothing feels like it matters anymore. Instead of tension, you get frustration, because there's no logical way for heroes to win without some, well, sure, why not plot device swooping in at the last second. Even fans who love 90s X-Men admit that Onslaught suffers from having too many cooks in the kitchen. Different writers had different ideas about who Onslaught is, what he wants, how strong he is, and how the heroes should react. Some issues treat him as a tragic psychic accident, others treat him as a cosmic demon with unlimited power. The tone swings widely between psychological thriller and big dumb blockbuster, sometimes within the same week. It feels more like corporate scheduling than storytelling. And when the final showdown arrived, Marvel decided to kill off the Avengers, Fantastic Four, and several major characters by having them throw themselves into Onslaught's energy form. It was dramatic for about 5 seconds, until Marvel immediately revealed those heroes were alive in a Pocket Universe reboot called Heroes Reborn, so their deaths felt like cheap stunts to justify relaunches. And that's what that was. So Onslaught is basically a reset button. People don't talk about Onslaught as an iconic antagonist. He represents everything bloated, overhyped, and editorially forced about that era. Even when Marvel brings him back in modern stories, they usually downplay his god tier levels or reframe him as a psychological threat instead of a universal disaster. He started as a brilliant concept, but by the end of the event, he was less ultimate villain and more ultimate headache. Namor. He is one of the oldest characters in Marvel Comics, and he is also one of the very first jerks in comic book history. He's arrogant, dramatic, and always convinced he is the smartest guy in the room, even when he's absolutely not. From the beginning, Namor has been written as someone who cares deeply about his people, but has almost zero patience for anyone else. That attitude makes him entertaining as a character, but also incredibly easy to hate. Yes, he'll help the Avengers one day, and insult every single one of them the next. Namor's biggest flaw is simple. He starts fights. A lot of fights. He's declared war on the surface world more times than anyone can count. Sometimes he has a reason, like pollution, invasions, corporate greed, but other times he is just mad. He's flooded cities, attacked submarines, threatened countries, and taken military actions that cause massive casualties. And even when Namor is technically right about humanity ruining the oceans, he chooses the most violent way possible to prove his point, and readers love to hate him for it. The moment that truly cemented Namor as a hated character happened during Avengers vs. X-Men. Powered by a piece of the Phoenix Force, Namor unleashed a tidal wave that completely flooded Wakanda, killing civilians and destroying a nation that had nothing to do with his personal beefs. It was one of the most brutal actions a Marvel hero has ever taken. Fans couldn't believe how casually he wiped out an entire city. Even years later, Wakandans and X-Men characters still hold grudges over what Namor did. Another reason people dislike Namor is his habit of flirting with married women. The most infamous example is his obsession with Sue Storm. Even while she was married to Reed Richards, Namor constantly made moves on her, right in front of Reed, which created tension in the Fantastic Four for decades. Sue sometimes flirted back, which made everything even messier. It wasn't villain-level behavior, but it definitely made him look sleazy, disrespectful, and incredibly full of himself, especially when he acted like Sue should obviously prefer him over her husband. So yeah, he's not just a villain, he is just Namor. He'll team up with heroes to save the world, then turn around and punch those same heroes in the face if he thinks they are disrespecting Atlantis. He's unpredictable, emotional, proud, and has absolutely no filter. That makes him fascinating, but also one of the most polarizing characters in all of Marvel. Hank Pym. He is one of the smartest characters in Marvel, but he's also one of the most unstable. He started as Ant-Man, then became Giant Man, then Goliath, then Yellow Jacket, then back again, constantly switching identities because he never felt comfortable in his own skin. Hank was written as a man who could build incredible machines but couldn't maintain emotional stability in his personal life. His scientific brilliance always came packaged with insecurity, anxiety, and a fragile sense of self-worth, which made him a fascinating but unpredictable Avenger from day one. His most infamous transformation happened when he created the Yellow Jacket persona during a psychological breakdown. This wasn't a cool new superhero upgrade, it was a full dissociative episode. As Yellow Jacket, he became cocky, aggressive, and desperate to prove himself as a real man, a total 180 from his usual personality. Marvel intended it to be a temporary mental health crisis, but what came next became one of the darkest panels in Avengers history. Yellow Jacket struck his wife, Janet Van Dyne, aka the Wasp. Writers later admitted the scene was poorly handled, but by then the damage was done. His reputation changed forever. The scene was one of the most defining and controversial moments in Marvel history. It wasn't just that he hit Janet, it was that the story framed it as part of his mental spiral, unintentionally mixing mental illness with violence. Fans never forgot it, and later writers doubled down on the controversy instead of fixing it. Hank Pym went from founding Avenger to the guy known for that one awful moment, no matter how many heroic things he'd done. Unfortunately, the Ultimate Comics version of Hank made the situation much worse. Instead of treating the original storyline as a mistake, the Ultimate Universe exaggerated everything. This Hank Pym was openly abusive, cruel, and downright sadistic toward Janet. This version cemented the idea that Hank Pym was defined by violence and toxicity, even though that was never the entire story. In the main 616 universe, many fans felt the ultimate portrayal crossed the line, turning a flawed character into a caricature of an abuser simply for shock value. Marvel has spent years trying to rebuild Hank Pym's image, giving him arcs about remorse, therapy, heroism, and redemption. He's had great moments like mentoring Scott Lang, dedicating himself to scientific, humanitarian work, and trying to become a better person after every mistake. But his legacy is still complicated. He created Ultron, one of Marvel's worst villains. He had a breakdown that hurt the person he loved, and his storylines often used mental health as a dramatic plot device rather than something to be treated with care. Professor Charles Xavier. He is usually presented as the calm, wise, peaceful leader of the X-Men, basically the Martin Luther King Jr. of mutants. But that polished image hides a much messier character underneath. From the start, Xavier was written as someone who believed he alone knew what was best for mutant kind, and that belief shaped every decision he made. Even in the early comics, he was already sketchy. He secretly fell in love with Jean Grey when she was still a teenager, something later writers quietly buried because of how uncomfortable it was. One of his biggest problems is that he lies constantly, especially to the people he claims to protect. He's erased memories, hidden entire parts of mutant history, and manipulated the minds of his own students for quote-unquote their own good. He locked away the existence of the Danger Room's sentient AI, he wiped Magneto's mind, he tampered with Rogue's emotions, and he used psychic manipulation so casually that it became part of his daily toolset. He talks a lot about trust and unity, but he rarely trusts anyone enough to be honest with them. It's one of the reasons so many of his students eventually grew to resent him. He founded the X-Men as a school, but let's be honest, it was the least safe school on Earth. Teenagers with barely controlled powers were thrown into battles against robots, alien invaders, and world-ending threats while still doing algebra homework. And Xavier didn't just allow this, he planned it. He treated mutant children like soldiers in training, often pushing them far beyond their emotional or physical limits. Cyclops especially was raised under intense pressure, shaped into a perfect field commander, and thought to suppress his own emotions. Xavier believed the ends justified the means, even when those means involved endangering minors. His darker side exploded in the 1990s when it was revealed that part of his suppressed anger and trauma created Onslaught, one of the most destructive villains in X-Men history. His telepathic control issues also led to multiple disasters, including the time he wiped Magneto's mind so violently that it triggered the creation of another monster. The X-Men have repeatedly discovered secrets Xavier hid from them, from entire mutant teams he formed and allowed to die in silence, to shady alliances with governments and powerful psychic entities. For someone who preaches peace, he's left a long trail of moral landmines behind him. Modern stories, especially the Krakoa era, have finally embraced the idea that Xavier isn't a saint. He helped create a mutant nation built on secrecy, selective memory, and psychic censorship. Even his body language changed. The man who once showed compassion now walks around emotionless, hiding behind a helmet and a mission no one fully understands. Fans now view him as one of the most morally ambiguous leaders in Marvel, someone who wants the best for mutants, but is always willing to cross lines that should never be crossed. He was never truly the perfect hero. He was always a complicated man whose power let him get away with things no one else could. Mr. Fantastic. Reed is supposed to be Marvel's greatest mind, but he often acts like that gives him permission to make decisions for everyone else. He's brilliant, but he is also emotionally clueless, socially awkward, and has the people skills of a wet sock. Reed constantly treats the world like an experiment, and the people around him like data points. He doesn't mean to be cruel, but his genius blinds him to how his actions actually affect others. Fans hate him because he's always right in the most annoying, morally grey way possible. His relationship with Sue Storm is a huge point of anger for readers. He neglects her, ignores her feelings, and disappears into his work for days without explanation. There are comics where he forgets she's in the room because he's too busy explaining quantum anomalies to himself. Worse, he's repeatedly experimented on his own family, willingly exposing them to cosmic radiation again, altering their physiology, and even letting their kids participate in experiments that no normal parents would ever allow. One joke in the Marvel fandom is that half the world-ending threats exist because Reed invented something he shouldn't have. He built devices that destroy universes, machines that open portals to nightmare dimensions, and experiments that nearly collapse reality. The Council of Reeds, a multiverse group of Reed Richards variants, prove just how dangerous he truly is. Every universe has a Reed, and almost all of them eventually become so-called godlike scientists who sacrifice morality for efficiency. Reed doesn't try to cause chaos, but he does it anyway, because he can't resist poking holes in reality just to see what happens. Him joining the Illuminati didn't help his reputation. The group made secret decisions behind the world's back, and Reed was one of the loudest voices pushing for horrible choices. He approved exiling Hulk into space, covered up catastrophic threats, and hid information from his own team. Reed always believed secrecy is justified for the greater good, but fans see it as him being arrogant and manipulative. Even when his plans work, they cost lives, destroy worlds, and traumatize his allies, and Reed acts like that's just the price of doing business. He is hated because he often feels one step away from becoming a full-blown villain. He saved the world countless times, but he's also caused disasters that no normal hero would ever recover from. The Inhumans. The modern hatred for the Inhumans really started when Marvel tried to make them the next big thing around 2013-2015. Marvel suddenly launched multiple Inhumans books, crossovers and events all at once. Readers quickly figured out why. Marvel didn't own the movie rights to the X-Men, so they pushed the Inhumans as a replacement. Instead of feeling organic, the entire thing felt like a business decision dressed up as storytelling. Fans don't like being told which characters they should care about, and the forced spotlight instantly turned people against the Inhumans. Black Bolt releasing the Terrigen Mist into the atmosphere was supposed to awaken new Inhumans and expand their culture. Instead, Marvel added a twist that made everyone furious. The Mists were deadly to mutants, so while new Inhumans got shiny powers, mutants literally choked and died in the same cloud. Suddenly, the Inhumans looked like selfish aristocrats who valued their tradition more than the survival of an entire race. Even worse, they didn't remove the Mists, didn't compromise, and acted like the dead cloud was sacred, so readers weren't rooting for them, they were rooting against them. Things got even worse with Inhumans vs X-Men, a crossover that tried to frame the conflict as morally grey but ended up making the Inhumans look terrible. Mutants were entirely justified. The Terrigen Mists were killing their people, but the story kept trying to portray the Inhumans as victims too. Many fans felt like Marvel was protecting their pet project at the expense of one of its oldest and most beloved franchises. When the dust settled, the Inhumans had lost not only the fight but also the audience. X-Men fans were furious, Inhuman fans were disappointed, and everyone agreed this story shouldn't have existed. Another issue is the characters themselves. The Inhuman royal family is built around monarchy, hierarchy, and elitism, concepts that never sit well with modern audiences. Black Bolt is stoic and unapproachable, Medusa can come across as arrogant, Karnak talks like a condescending philosopher, even Crystal, one of the nicer ones, often gets dragged into messy royal politics. Compared to the X-Men, who fight for the survival and acceptance, the Inhumans feel like rich cosmic aristocrats arguing about tradition while the world burns. It's hard for readers to bond with characters who act like they are above everyone else. This combination of forced promotion, bad story decisions, X-Men conflict, and unrelatable characters created a perfect storm. Fans didn't just dislike the Inhumans, they rejected the entire direction Marvel was trying to take. And then the final blow hit. The Inhumans TV show bombed big time. Between the online backlash, poor sales, and the failed live-action attempt, Marvel quietly removed the Inhumans from the spotlight. Carol Danvers. She has gone through more reboots and identity shifts than almost any major Marvel hero. There's Miss Marvel, Binary, Warbird, Captain Marvel, Cosmic Powerhouse, Grounded Pilot, Alcoholic, Military Commander, etc. Every time Marvel tried to redefine her, a chunk of fans felt disconnected. Her portrayals were inconsistent, and later versions of the character were too stiff or serious. And because her character kept changing direction, readers never agreed on which Carol was the real one. One of the biggest reasons fans turned on Carol was Civil War II, where she took a hardline stance on using predictive justice, basically punishing people before they committed crimes. This storyline painted her as authoritarian, stubborn, and unwilling to listen, which put her in the exact same position Iron Man was in during the first Civil War. Fans saw her as reckless and morally rigid, causing characters and readers to view her as a bully rather than a hero, and that event did long-term damage to her popularity. Another source of backlash was Marvel heavily marketing Carol as the next big central hero, almost like they were trying to force her into the spotlight, instead of letting her grow naturally. She got multiple relaunches, multiple #1 issues, major event roles, and constant promotions as Marvel's Superman. Whenever Marvel announces a character as the chosen one, fans push back. It happened with Sam Alexander Nova, Riri Williams, the Inhumans, and especially Carol, who suddenly became the company's flagship female hero, whether fans were ready for it or not. She is written as overly strict, humorless, and cold, especially in modern comics. Characters like Spider-Man, Wolverine, Wolverine or She-Hulk have flaws but remain charismatic. Carol's flaws, on the other hand, sometimes come across as abrasive. Some writers nail her confident, witty, tough pilot vibe perfectly, but others write her as a blunt military figure who pushes everyone away. And when your likability depends heavily on who's writing you, fans tend to become divided. And her movie debut in Captain Marvel was very divisive. Some viewers felt the film was stiff, underwritten, or too focused on making her look unstoppable instead of giving her emotional depth, while some fans didn't like Brie Larson's colder, more restrained performance. The movie also came out right between Infinity War and Endgame, so fans felt she was being positioned as the new main hero, replacing all their favorites. Whether fair or not, the internet latched onto the idea that Marvel was pushing her too hard, and that narrative became part of her reputation. Yes, she gets more hate than she deserves because she sits at the center of multiple fandom battles, forced representation versus organic storytelling, power-level arguments, event fatigue, MCU expectations, and fan nostalgia for characters like Black Widow who never got the same push. Carol is a symbol. For some fans, she symbolizes Marvel's mistakes. For others, she symbolizes Marvel finally giving a woman top-tier status. She's not an evil character. She's just a lightning rod. And when a hero becomes a lightning rod, every story, good or bad, feels bigger than it actually is. Riri Williams. She debuted during a period when readers were already frustrated with legacy characters being replaced. Thor was replaced, Hulk was replaced, Captain America was replaced, and then Iron Man went into a coma, and a teenage engineering prodigy suddenly became the new armored hero. Even though she didn't do anything wrong in story, fans reacted badly to Marvel's pattern. She wasn't hated because of her personality, she was hated because people felt like she was forced into the spotlight as the new Iron Man before she even had time to develop her own identity. She built her own suit at MIT and impressed Tony Stark, which is impressive, but fans argued her rise felt too fast, too convenient, and not organic enough. Marvel tried to present her as the next tech genius of the universe right away, and some readers thought it undermined Tony, Rhodey, and even characters like Amaris Cho and T'Challa. This debate snowballed into toxic arguments online, and Riri became the center of fights she never asked for. Another reason Riri struggled early on is that Marvel didn't give her the strongest writing team at first. Her solo book introduced great ideas, but didn't fully explore her personality, motivation, or flaws. Readers weren't sure how she handled grief, how she viewed responsibility, or what truly drove her beyond "I'm smart." Characters like Miles Morales and Kamala Khan succeeded because writers gave them depth from day one, and Ironheart's early stories felt more like outlines than emotional arcs, which made her feel flat to some readers and made others say she didn't have hero energy yet. She was also paired with a Tony Stark AI who acted like her mentor. Instead of letting her stand on her own, Marvel attached a hologram version of Tony who constantly guided her, lectured her, or helped her figure things out. Readers hated it because it made Riri feel like a side character in her own book. Instead of becoming Ironheart through her own choices, it felt like she was walking in Tony's shadow while his ghost hovered over her shoulder. The concept could have been interesting, but it ended up making her look less independent. However, later writers gave her a stronger personality, clearer goals, and actual emotional depth, especially when she started exploring what Ironheart means separate from Iron Man. She's shown vulnerability, creativity, doubt, and confidence in ways that feel real. Even fans who once disliked her admit she's becoming a solid character with a unique lane in the Marvel Universe. Paul Rabin. He didn't enter the Spider-Man comics with fan excitement, he entered with fan confusion. Readers weren't asking for a new romantic interest for Mary Jane, and they definitely weren't asking for a random man with zero history in the Spider family to suddenly become important. Paul showed up out of nowhere during one of the strangest arcs in recent Amazing Spider-Man history, and fans immediately felt like he was being forced into a space that didn't belong to him. His introduction wasn't earned, organic, or logical. He is tied to the alternate dimension storyline where he and MJ end up raising two children together. Even though the kids weren't biologically theirs, the setup created a nightmare scenario for Peter Parker fans. After decades of emotional investment in Peter and MJ's relationship, the idea of MJ forming a family with a random man in a time-dilated world felt like a slap in the face. It wasn't just that Paul existed, it was that Marvel used him to break the most iconic romance in comic history without giving readers a satisfying explanation or emotional build-up. Another huge issue with Paul is that he is quite boring. He doesn't have a striking personality, a compelling backstory, a unique skill set, or even memorable dialogue. He's not charming, he's not funny, he is not dangerous, he is just there. And yet the story kept pushing him into importance, as if readers were supposed to care simply because the writers said so. When a character with no charisma or depth suddenly becomes central to Spider-Man's emotional drama, fans feel manipulated rather than engaged. Paul became a walking symbol of everything readers didn't want for Peter Parker. He wasn't just MJ's partner, he was the reason she seemed cold, distant, and rewritten in ways that didn't feel like her. Instead of giving Peter and MJ a natural reason for their breakup, the plot shoved Paul into the middle of their dynamic, turning him into an obstacle fans resented instantly. It didn't feel like good drama, it felt like emotional sabotage. Even readers who tried to be positive about new characters agreed Paul Rabin was introduced specifically to make fans upset. Paul basically represents bad editorial decisions, weak writing, and forced direction. Instead of adding depth to the Spider-Man mythos, he took the attention away from characters fans care about while offering nothing meaningful in return. He's not a villain, yes, but he might be worse. A character that nobody asked for, inserted into the most emotional part of a beloved character's world, and written in a way that makes readers feel like they are being trolled.